And we are back, and we just finished watching Black Panther Wakanda Forever from 2022, rated PG-13 with a runtime of 2 hours and 41 minutes. We actually, for our very first trip into the theater, obviously decided to go with a Marvel film, and this did not disappoint. It didn't feel like 2 hours and 41 minutes, did it?
No, well, they had a lot of stuff going on in that movie.
But they did have a lot going on in this film.
They fit a lot of story in there, and it kind of makes sense. I could see sort of like that they had the idea for the story, and then obviously they had to change things because Chadwick Boseman passed away, and so they had to augment the story quite a bit. But seriously, they did a good job as far as that goes. They deserve credit for that, because that was a huge task to not just like, oh, we're just going to recast the role or something like that, to actually change everything and use what was set before to continue it and work it into the plot where it made sense.
This was directed again by Ryan Coogler, who did the original one, and with screenplay credits to Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole. This is probably the Marvel movie that had me cry the most. I cried 4 separate occasions in the first 10 minutes of this.
Yeah.
It was like Up. This was like Marvel's Up.
Well, I mean,
to me, I was like, what just happened? I'm completely traumatized.
It just hits a little differently because you're not dealing with the death of a fictional character. Well, just the death of a fictional character. You're dealing with the fact that this guy who portrayed the character so well passed away way, way, way before his time.
Yeah.
And knowing that reality, that makes things...
And I appreciate that he's interwoven into this story.
Yeah.
It was beautifully done. So kudos to Ryan Coogler for just keeping that, but still making this a story onto itself. I think obviously the main character here is Shuri, played by Leticia Wright, and she does an excellent job. I mean, she's a decent actress. I mean, her own...
She had to absolutely step up.
Yeah, I mean
prior to this, she was basically
a secondary character.
As Ned said in Spider-Man, the guy in the chair.
Yes.
I mean, literally, she was sitting in a chair
character
in the first movie, driving a car on a continent far away. So,
but I've seen her in other things, and she's a good actress. But I think this particular role, she really gets to shine in really so many ways. I mean, she shows so much range. And it's funny because as we were watching it, it's okay. So without giving too much, because this obviously is still in the theaters, so we're not going to spoil this, but the first 10 minutes of the movie are kind of dramatic, and then the second part of the story becomes like a horror movie.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, it's like there's like action pieces and like dramatic moments in it, but it just blended so well together. And that second sequence that we're like, are we like in a horror movie now? Because what the hell happened?
That really was like a horror. Just the way it was filmed when they're like, those guys are looking like, especially... Wait,
don't give anything away.
I'm not going to give too much away. I mean, well, it's not really giving much away to say that we know the bad guy is...
Do we?
Well, the antagonist.
There we go. That's a better word.
The antagonist is Namor, the Submariner. If you're a fan of Marvel Comics, you know who I'm talking about. Basically, he's Marvel's version of Aquaman. A guy, half human, half whatever.
Whatever he is.
Ruler of a sub-aquatic city. It's not Atlantis, but it's an equivalent to that. So you know the bad guys are coming from, well, not the bad guys, but the antagonist's soldiers are coming from under the sea. And the way this is just filmed, it was so good, and the way that they attack and it makes sense because it sort of like borrows from legend. And then there's just like the one bit that I thought was really well done, and it reminded me of a lot of like horror movies that are based upon stuff coming out of the water. Where that guy is just on the edge of the... It's like an oil derrick in the middle of the ocean. Middle of the Atlantic. He looks out over the water, and it's just like the moonlight on the water, and you just see like maybe a dozen or so shadows of heads coming out of the water, and they're just like there. They're just there still in the water, and you hear this noise,
and you're like, what is going on?
Like, what is going on, and why are these people doing what they're doing? And it's really well done.
It's really well done.
I mean, as far as an intro of a threat, they really pulled out. If Ryan Coogler did a horror film,
I'd love to see it.
He would nail it, because this isn't a horror film, but that scene felt horrifying.
Yes,
and you could see these people on this derrick are basically just like, oh crap.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for a minute there, I felt like, did the projectionist switch the reel? Because I was like, what is happening? And why is it happening? And OMG, what did I just see?
Yeah.
It's really well done.
Excellently done. It's
really
probably,
well done.
if I had a favorite sequence, it was that.
Yeah.
That was really good. Yeah.
And then I thought, again, agreed with you. Just the devastating loss of Chadwick Boseman, not just as the character of Black Panther, but the actor and the human being and the co-worker and friend to a lot of these people in the production. There were so many things in this movie. I love that he took pieces of Chadwick's previous performances and kind of interwove them here. But there's a sequence where Shuri comes into a room and she's, I guess, meeting with Riri. And that felt very much like in the original movie when T'Challa comes in and he sees Shuri and they kind of do that whole hand thing. And it's just... It was just lovely. I mean, it was
like a nice callback.
Yeah, it was a really nice callback to that, and this was such a bittersweet movie. It was just so bittersweet because it's it hits differently. I mean, the whole beginning sequence where they're doing
the ceremony
for T'Challa, it's lovely and it's heartbreaking and it's gut wrenching and it's beautiful. It's I love that they took the time to honor the character. They could have ignored it. They could have said he was on a mission. They could have said they could have replaced him. They could have just put a different actor and acted like it was all the same. But I appreciated that something happened, something devastating happened, and they were dealing with it. And I think that
they kind of made it like it mirrored reality.
Yes. I was going to say, if you have ever experienced loss, I think this also hits home because the feelings that not only Shuri goes through, but also Ramonda, right?
The queen.
The queen, yes. Right. It resonates, right? Because that speech where Ramonda's like, I've given I got chills listening to that.
Well, she's great.
Angela Bassett's just amazing.
Awesome in this role.
Yeah. She's such a powerhouse. Yeah. But again, this is definitely Leticia Wright's movie. And she stepped up and she went the range.
Yeah, she goes the whole way. And it's especially impressive because the first one, she's like this happy-go-lucky
kid
character. Yeah. And now it's like this tragedy happens in it and it's compounded. Sucks all that joy out of her.
Yeah.
And you see glimpses of it, but everything is just
different.
Everything is weighed down with this
new reality.
This terrible depression and anger and helplessness because she's like this super genius who's technology is amazing and could fix so much and yet she couldn't do this.
Yeah.
So she's haunted by that.
Yeah.
Very good.
Excellent.
Excellent story arc for Shuri. Yeah.
Let's talk about Namor, who is the other, I guess, big character in this film.
Yeah.
As a heavy, and again, I don't think he's the bad guy. I think he's more of an antagonist.
He has conflicting interests with Wakanda and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
His primary goal is basically just to be left alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his primary goal. And I would probably say if there was a weak point in the movie,
or in the story,
it's his motives and how he seeks to accomplish his motives, especially for a character who we're told, or we know just from the facts of the story, is as old as he is, and you would imagine as experienced and intelligent, that's going to come with life and experience.
Sure.
That he would have had
an inkling that
he would have had a bit more nuanced way of dealing with the problem that had arisen.
But do you think, and I'll try not to spoil this, because of, I guess, being in the shadows for so long, there's a certain conceit tied to that, because it's like, well, nobody knows.
Well, I mean, yeah, there is a certain conceit. I mean, that sticks with the character. If you know anything about the Namor in the comics, he is arrogant as hell.
Is he?
Yeah.
And
he is, I
didn't know this, but you said also a ladies' man.
He's definitely, if Sue Storm was there, he'd be all over that. He is got a major, you know what, for Reed Richards' wife. But
does
anyway,
he know that she's married?
Yes, and he does not care. He does not care. He'll walk up to Reed Richards and be like, "She's too good for you, man."
Really?
Yeah.
I've never read.
He does not care. He's like, "She should be with me. She really wants to be with me too. I could tell."
Oh my God.
And Sue's just like,
Really?
No, she loves Reed Richards.
But
there's been some, depending on the writers. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. There's some multiverse something going on. Yeah.
It's funny because when we were watching this, I got the impression that Namor and Shuri were going to hook up, or I felt like they might.
I got the impression that he was trying to charm her. I never got the impression that they were going to hook up at all.
Really?
No, I felt that he was trying to charm her, and that fits with the character, and it also sort of fits with the character in that, because he pretty much let it be known, hey, if you don't see things my way, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill everybody you love, and then I'm going to kill everybody in the world on the surface.
Yeah.
Because I need to do what I need to do, and that's the way it is. There's no negotiation here.
Yeah.
It's do what I want or die. He was never like an enraged psycho type character. Mm-hmm. He was very matter of fact about it, which makes sense because he is the king of his empire.
Yeah. Is he like that in the comic?
He gets pissed off in the comics.
Oh.
Like he'll take offense to something, and then a giant whale with arms will come to the surface and like tear down the Empire State Building or something.
Jeez.
He's an old character. He's been around forever. They say he's like Marvel's first mutant.
Interesting.
And they actually use the M word.
Yes.
They actually say, he says, "I'm a mutant."
Yeah.
So they're definitely bringing in that side of the Marvel universe that used to be off limits.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with it. I'm excited. I'm excited to see Deadpool and Wolverine in a movie.
Yeah, I mean they're edging towards it slowly. I mean they're doing it more with the TV shows, like Miss Marvel is. I think they also use the M word, but yeah, they're moving their way towards that. But anyway, yeah, I didn't think that he was trying to have a romantic relationship with Shuri at all. And I don't think I think she was like blown away by everything that was going on in what the hell was that place called?
Talukan? Yeah.
Talukan. But yeah, she was definitely impressed, and they had like their whole big society down there. Yeah, but I didn't see that. But like I said, the thing that I felt was the weakest aspect of that whole bit was his motives. Like I feel that being who he was and living as long as he did, he should have known better. Not that I think that he was totally confident that they could just wipe out Wakanda or anybody that they chose to wipe out, but he didn't have to, and he wasn't like I said, he wasn't this bloodthirsty guy. He was just doing what he was doing because he believed that was the most assured way. But he wasn't like, I'll kill the surface dwellers or anything like that. And since he wasn't like that, I just didn't quite get why he couldn't be like, you know what, let's talk about this and find out a solution that works for everybody. And you could have avoided probably like the last 45 minutes of the movie.
But those were good 45 minutes. I mean,
they were super exciting, but I don't see why it needed to happen. It just felt like a slut. I mean, you could say that about a lot of action movies in general, movies like that. But still, where everything is like, I feel like they really put a lot of thought into the way dealing with Chadwick's passing and or dealing with Black Panther's passing, and how the Wakandan society is moving on past that. It's a year later. People are getting on with their lives. They're trying to do the Ramonda takes Shuri to the river and burns the funeral garbs. There's a whole like ritual
and letting go and
moving on, and so much thought put into that, and then just a really shallow motive for the antagonist there. It just felt like you could have done something different, or if you were going to go with that shallow route, that Namor doesn't work. The Namor that you created to do this doesn't work. If you wanted to go that route, he should have been more of a problem. Like he should have been something that needed to be put down. But he wasn't that. He was a wise leader.
For the most part.
He was a wise leader for the most part. And then just to have this sort of... Or you could have said, okay, maybe like his second in commands or his seconds, because he had a couple of heavy hitters with him.
Yeah.
He had Namora and Atuma. And Atuma he was just like this big dude who's just like all about fighting. You know?
She was too.
She was too, but she was like, I will kill all of these people.
Yeah.
In fact, she was the one giving the orders, just kill them all. Like, remember the cops are there?
Yeah,
She's just like, kill them.
Yeah.
No problem.
She went to kill them, and she was like, just.
And Atuma, he fought Okoye, and he beat her up and knocked her spear away, and he could have killed her. He threw her spear back at her and was like, come on, let's go again.
Like Mad Dog.
He wanted to brawl. He wanted a worthy opponent.
Yeah.
That was all that mattered to him.
Yeah.
But if you had like Namor, like maybe Namora was the one that was like instigating this whole thing. But it really wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very end, there was that discussion with Namora and Namor, which you could sort of see as like a seed maybe being planted for future.
Yeah. Well, I think absolutely
conflict.
They bring him back. Well, I think, okay, so...
Well, I don't see how they can't. I mean, it's it's an entire new world being added to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is something that's big.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder, they probably got to make a story about what the hell happened to these people when Thanos wiped out half their population. I mean, they must have been doing something. I'm curious about that. I would like to know what happened then. But still, they got to bring that back.
So something that you said kind of immediately following us watching the film was you liked this film, you still liked the first one better, and you thought Killmonger was a better foil.
Yeah.
Putting Killmonger and Namor together, do you get the impression, okay, so this is my interpretation, right? So Killmonger was great. And I think that prior to the first Black Panther, when you had... actually, no, because you had Baron Zemo before, right? In the other movie. Civil War. And he's actually he's not your typical bad guy, because there's a reason why he is how he is. You sort of feel for him in a way.
Yeah.
Even though he's done very bad things, but you sort of feel for him because you understand his motivations. And I think the same thing with Killmonger, although Killmonger didn't want anybody's pity. Killmonger was basically his namesake, right? He just wanted to destroy.
He wanted revenge.
Right, right.
For the mistreatment of black people everywhere. And he was going to use the power that Wakanda had. It was like, I mean, Wakanda's like probably the most powerful country in the MCU because of the technology that they have. And he was pissed that you have all of this and you're not doing anything to help anybody.
Right.
And at the end, obviously at the end of the original Black Panther, they decide, okay, we're going to do that, but we're not going to do it his way.
Right, obviously.
His way was
burn it all down.
Yeah.
Which sort of comes full circle in this, in the dialogue in this.
That's something that we don't want to talk about.
No.
But yeah, I thought Killmonger as a villain or as an antagonist
worked better.
Just worked so much better because he obviously a good bad guy thinks that he's the good guy and he's the one that's why they're doing the things that they're doing. And while that's true for both Killmonger and Namor. Killmonger's plan, that was the plan. And it wasn't like he was a character who was, you know what? How about instead of killing everybody, we're going to set up some outreach centers. That's not Killmonger.
No.
Namor, he would have set up outreach centers.
You think so? I don't know.
I'm just saying that if his personality was in place of Killmonger's personality, if Killmonger had Namor's personality, he wouldn't be this guy who's like, I'm going to burn it all down. Namor, his motives were different. It wasn't about revenge or anything like that. It was pretty much just about protecting his society. He didn't need to do what he didn't need to do the motive that they gave him to do.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what my problem. The Killmonger, it made sense, and it made sense that we must fight this guy because there is no negotiation with him. We can't just be like, you know what? I understand you want to kill all these people and use our technology to just basically rule the world. We can't do that. Let's have a middle ground. No, it was you need to be stopped. Then you got Namor coming around. It didn't need to escalate into that level of conflict.
No, I agree. But I think that, okay, so the point I was going to make was that my interpretation was that, so you had Killmonger in the first one. You completely understand his motives. You completely understand the anger. But you also feel for this young man because he's betrayed.
He's been hurt and betrayed. Exactly.
By his own family.
Yeah.
By his uncle. My God.
Yeah.
His uncle killed his brother, who
His
is
father.
Killmonger's father, right? So in that way, there's
and
like
he was
this,
abandoned.
and abandoned, right? Not only
abandoned
did his
in
uncle kill his father, but he abandoned him
in poverty.
Yes. So you completely understand why Killmonger is the way he is, and from that absolute betrayal comes this anger and resentment that just feeds like a forest fire, right?
Yeah.
And then if you haven't seen the first Black Panther, I'm going to spoil it. Killmonger and T'Challa fight. Killmonger gets killed. But I think that in that movie, because I don't think that T'Challa wanted to kill Killmonger. I think he wanted to bring him into the fold, but Killmonger was just too far gone. He didn't want that, right? There's that great line at the end, the one about the slave ships. He'd rather go into the ocean than be a slave kind of thing. So I think, again, this is just my interpretation. You had this amazing bad guy, right? An amazing bad guy in the fact that he was scary and willing to go to those dark places. But at the same time, you understood it and you sort of felt for this young man because he had gone through so much, right? And I think he had to be killed. I think, like you were saying, like this is a character that needs to be put down, right? So I think he had to be killed. But I think maybe there's thought that, maybe that could have ended differently, right? So in this particular film, right, you have the heavy, which is Namor. You understand why he's motivated and why he wants to accomplish his goal. And he does not have mercy because he originally asks the queen and the princess for something and is basically like, you have a week. Bring this to me or I'll come back and basically rain down.
You'll be my enemy.
Yeah, you'll be my enemy, basically. So I feel like in this film, the antagonist is sort of given a pass, right? Or I
don't know what you mean.
In the fact that it didn't end, this antagonist didn't end up like the first antagonist, right?
Well, I mean, that's why I find it weaker because, like I said, you didn't need to do all this. The solution was a verbal one. Like you could have just
together. You could have kingdoms.
Yeah, you could have just talked it out.
Yeah.
The motivation that Namor had for doing the things that he did and asking for the things that he did, they didn't make sense. They were just sort of like knee-jerk, reactionary, almost like extremism. And to me, his personality, when you see him in the rest of the movie, when he's explaining everything and how he is and whatnot, and like the core of his motivation, when that's brought to you or shown to you, it doesn't lead me to believe that this is a guy who's like all or nothing. But yet that was his motivation, all or nothing.
Right. But I could see it because, let's be honest, his kingdom has been hidden this whole time. So it's not like he's gotten into any kind of political situations. They don't deal with anybody but themselves, basically.
But even still, he knows what's happening in the world.
He does, but I think that for the most part, his goal is, again, to keep his society hidden in the shadows, right? And away from prying eyes. Nobody knows that they exist. I mean, all these things are happening, and the rest of the world is blaming the Wakandans, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's just like, that's the thing. It's okay, he wants to keep his society secret. Mm-hmm. But he's got to realize that's not sustainable.
I understand what you're saying.
And because it's not sustainable, to not have a way of working together or working out a solution that doesn't involve the basically what is the catalyst for this conflict, it's just silly to me. It's so one-dimensional.
Okay, how about they are descendants of the Mayans, right?
Something like that, yeah.
How did Mayans deal with their issues? They didn't go into political discourse.
No, they killed whoever's around them and either assimilated them or just outright murdered them all.
Exactly. So this is what's going to happen here. Okay. Because they wait. Let me make my point. This is the same thing that's going to happen here because that is their way. First of all. Secondly, again, they've not had any discourse with anyone that isn't themselves. So at the heart of them, they're like their ancestors. They haven't really progressed. They don't even have government. They don't have the things that make a society advance from primitive era to a more modern era. They didn't have an industrial revolution. They didn't have...
Well, okay.
Okay.
That is another thing that I find weak about the story.
Okay. What is that?
They clearly do have some kind of industrial society that we just didn't see.
Why do you say that?
Because they have technology.
What technology?
They had grenades. Not only did they have grenades, they were like magnetic grenades. They knew how to manipulate vibranium. Mm-hmm. You can't just take a hammer and a forge and manipulate vibranium. Mm-hmm. You have to know how to work it. Mm-hmm. So their level of technology was equal to Wakanda's.
I don't know about that.
They just did things differently.
I don't know about that.
He built a sun under the ocean with technology.
And like that, like how would other places not know that was there?
Because it was so deep below the surface.
Oh, all right.
I mean, if you understand, if you read anything about ocean and exploration, we know less about what's going on in the ocean than we do about Mars right now.
Yeah.
And that's another freaking planet.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of stuff down there that we have never seen and probably never will. Yeah. Just because it's so inhospitable. Remember when he told her, if I brought you to my kingdom, your blood would turn to poison and the pressure would shatter all your bones. Yeah, that's what's going on. That's why we don't go down there. Yeah. And the way they went down there, I thought that was very clever. It just wasn't like, oh, we'll just swim. Yeah. There was like some sort of currents or something. that was doing that. Yeah. So yeah, the Telokans or the underwater people. Did they ever really give their race a name or anything like that?
Telekan, right? Because
that was the name of the city,
right?
But regardless, they had technology,
possibly, but they seem more like a war nation, and a war nation that was solely fueled by protect at any means necessary.
That's sort of like one of the things that like always like bugs me a little bit about even like Black Panther and this Black Panther 2 or Wakanda and Telokan. You have this society or societies that have this amazing technology or whatever, and then you look at the systems of government that they have. they're absolutely terrible. I mean, the first one, it's like, okay, we still have like a monarchy. You're the king now. No. I challenge you. And how, okay, well, do we get to vote or do we get to hear your ideas on how to make society better? No, we're going to fight to the death. And it's like, come on, man. It's like the 2020s. And you're you're even beyond that. You're like, you have like anti-gravity ships and tractor beams and all of this amazing technology. Instant communication, knowledge of the world. You should not be choosing your leaders with a fist fight.
Sure.
And then and then you have the telecon, and it's sort of, okay, so you got this, you have an emperor who's like wielding a spear. It's sort of like, you'd figure after
100 years,
200 years, 600 years, they would be like, okay, well, all right, well, this guy, he's really strong. He's probably, but the rest of their society should have advanced. Somebody else in the society should have been like, hey, I invented this cool thing, and it should have like changed society. Why are we riding on orcas? There's so much better stuff. Mm-hmm. That's quicker and far more efficient than riding on an orca or a sperm whale. Mm-hmm. And that always sticks in my. It's nitpicky. I know you're dealing with fantastical things and stuff like that, but
I think they're also trying to show that these societies still adhere to the customs.
Yeah, that's true, but also, as time goes on, customs and styles and stuff like that change. Well, and that's one thing that also bothers me, is that it's never really modernized. It's, why are they still wearing feathers and ornamental jewelry like that? It's sort of like, okay, if we go to the surface, everybody still dresses like a pilgrim or wears tights and those weird pantaloons.
Well, I think, and I could be wrong. Again, this is just interpretation as far as I'm concerned. But I think, so you have the Shuri character who is that almost non-believer. I mean, in the first one, she scoffs at the old ways, right? Yeah, and even to an extent in this film, when the mother is like, I was sitting with my thoughts and your brother came to me, and it was like, I felt his hand on my shoulder. And she's like, he's not there.
Yeah, it's just like a projection.
It's just a projection, right? So she is someone who is a non-believer in a lot of ways, but I think that by the end of the film, she almost has an epiphany, and she's learning to reconcile the old and the new.
No, I get that. And in my mind, it's basically, okay, you could see it as a spiritual thing, or I could just see it as just an emotional moment or a mental breakthrough or something like that. Whatever, so long as whatever it is gives you comfort.
Yes, right, because that was what the mother said.
But basically, what I was saying with what I was saying before is, and like I said, it's kind of a nitpicky thing, but you've put in so much thought into all of these things. Societies change over the course of hundreds of years. We don't talk like we did 600 years ago. We don't dress like we did 600 years ago. We don't have the same restrictions and whatnot as we did 600 years. This is just the natural progression. And yet, for some reason, it only seems to happen elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Like that guy on the council with the giant plate in his lip.
But don't you think, even in our world, let's look at our world, in the real world, there are pockets, there are enclaves of societies that are untouched.
Yeah.
And yet,
okay.
They still adhere to.
But you see that you used the word they were untouched. Mm-hmm. Wakanda isn't untouched. Wakanda has been
exposed. But
not only did they expose themselves to the world just, I guess, recently, I guess in the last 7 or 8 years, but they have been aware of the rest of the world this entire time. Mm-hmm. So they are not untouched. They are aware. When you're talking about societies that have been untouched, they don't know anything going on outside of their borders. Mm-hmm. Zero. And people don't know about them, or they do because they're observing them from a great distance. Mm-hmm. So that, like those, like the tribes in the Amazon, that like they're like, you can't go near them, and I think one of them just like went extinct because of all the logging and stuff going on down there. But like that makes sense. But those people, they never had any sort of communication with the outside world, so they were very small, very insular. Mm-hmm. Wakanda's not like that.
But they are in a way. They don't allow outside people in.
They don't, but they are aware of the outside world. They are aware of world politics. In fact, they hide themselves, but they still have representation on the outside world. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like suddenly everybody in the UN was like, "What's Wakanda? Where's that?" Mm-hmm. They had representation there. They just thought that they were just some agrarian society. But they were still there, and when you see Wakanda, the city, there's some modern stuff going on, like sensibilities as far as like clothing and whatnot. But
there's still a lot of the old ways.
But that's what I mean. It's like you still have like that super tradition, and as far as Talokan, I feel bad that I keep mispronouncing it. But as far as that goes, that society is insular, but they are also aware of the outside world.
But I think
especially Namor.
But I think
because Namor speaks perfect English.
Yes, but I think that's because when you want to protect yourself from the enemy, you have to understand your enemy. And I think that
But I just
the thing on the rig, it probably wasn't an isolated incident. I think that they've actively made sure that they were never exposed to outsiders.
I 100% believe that. But the fact is, like, they have people participating in these raids. They have people who are observing what's going on. There's like no way that there isn't some kind of influence that just sort of like seeps into society over the course of
I don't know.
This is hundreds of years.
But when Namor and his people go to neutralize the threat, they don't leave anyone. I mean, even in that sequence in the beginning, there are no survivors. There's no one to say it was blue men coming out of the water. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't care about the survivors. I'm talking about the people, Namor's people, who basically go back to their society, go back to their city. Mm-hmm. They are aware of what's going on in the world.
I think to an extent, but I don't think that they...
Well, no, but what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be this major thing because this is hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not like I'm not saying okay. One of the Telecon people came up and they watched MTV for a half hour and now all the society is completely different. No, I'm talking about hundreds of years where like nobody was just like, why are we wearing feathers? We live underwater.
But that's what.
When did nobody come up with a new style?
No.
That's ridiculous. Even in this like massive technologically powerful society, somebody is going to come up with an idea that says, you know what? I think the feather look is stupid now. Feathers go out. People don't even wear hats anymore.
Yeah. And how do feathers underwater work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, they basically mirrored Mayan culture.
They did.
Yeah.
But that was like hundreds of years ago. You don't think that they would go up and they would see, oh, okay.
Why would they go up when they have everything they need down there? They don't need to go up for air. They don't need to get food up there.
Kill anybody that's encroaching on their territory. There's always a reason to do something.
I'm sure they
there's
do.
There's no way that you could say in like 600 years.
But
they never expanded because.
Didn't you also get the sense that they also shunned to the point of we'll kill any outsider? They didn't care for the outside. They were fine.
Well, okay. That would have made sense. But Namor wasn't like that.
Well, again, as a ruler, if you're going to protect your people, you have to understand the enemy. So, of course, I think he's a little bit more well-versed in, I guess, the outside world.
It just doesn't fit with everything. If Namor was like a zealot, was absolute in his belief, it would have made sense. There's no way to stop this guy but with conflict. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like that.
Don't you think? I mean, he was willing to...
He was willing to do that, but maybe it was just a portrayal of him. It just didn't... It really didn't fit. If he was really like that, why didn't he just kill Shuri and the scientists when he had them? It's like, we have everything we want. Why aren't we doing it?
Well, he didn't.
Because
originally he didn't have beef with Shuri, so he wouldn't have killed Shuri, I don't think.
If you are a zealot about protecting your society, you don't care.
But I think he also saw...
And another thing about that...
But
wait. And another thing about that, Wakanda had no idea where the hell they were.
Right. Prior to this. Right.
He could have just...
But he knew about them, right? Because
Namor knew about...
Wakanda, because he said even his mother talked about these people that lived in absolute like secrecy from the rest of the world.
Oh, well, you just proved, I forgot about that, but you just proved my point. They clearly are watching the surface world.
Fine, but I think that, and this goes to a couple of conversations that happen in the film where he basically is almost using Wakanda as a cover to make sure that the rest of the world doesn't know about the Talukans.
Well, that's the thing. He didn't have to do anything in that respect.
Right.
He didn't have to attack Wakanda. He didn't have to do anything. He could have just he could have killed them both. He could have killed them and then just went back to doing what he was doing.
But I think he attacked Wakanda in a moment of just pure emotional rage because that girl gets killed.
Yeah, well, we're getting into too many details here. Basically, what I'm saying is if his character was portrayed as some kind of zealot who was an absolutionist when it came to hiding his people, all the stuff with Shuri going to Talokan, it wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't care. He wouldn't be saying, oh,
but he went to Wakanda to basically say, you guys are going to do this for me because I can't risk going after that thing that I want from you guys because then that would expose us to the rest of the world.
But that doesn't matter.
Why doesn't it matter?
Because he had what he wanted.
At that point, he had what he wanted. Yes, because
that's what I'm saying. He had what he wanted. If he was all about keeping everything a secret, he would have just killed them.
I don't think he ever would have killed Shuri.
Why?
Because I don't think that was his intention. I think he really wanted to
that's what I'm saying. He's too rational.
I don't know about rational. I don't know if I would say he's too rational. I think if he is not just going to be like kill them, then he has some kind of rational nature to him where he's basically saying that might be a bad idea because that would tick those people off. But I think
he wouldn't care. He wouldn't care. That's the thing. He wasn't that type of antagonist, and that's why that's my main problem with him, because if he was willing to do that, then he should have been willing to just come up with a different solution.
But I think that in his mind, he was hoping that Wakanda and the Talukans would come together and forge an alliance, because his ultimate game plan was world destruction, right? He was like,
no,
at this point, I just want to wipe out the surface because I can't risk them knowing about us.
Right. And if that was his plan, it was something that he was, I guess, building towards in the future or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, this is now. And in order to get what he wants now, all he would have had to do was kill them right there.
But again, I think the other person, eventually it may have happened. As far as Shuri, I don't think so. Because I really feel like he was trying to forge an alliance with somebody on the face of the earth who was their equal.
Okay, well then why didn't he just kill the other one? Why was she kept alive?
Maybe they were going to eventually get to it. And
he told her.
And again, what about that exchange with the Queen on the beach before the big Nakia Mission Impossible thing, where he basically threatens her?
Yeah, why isn't he not following through? Why isn't he becoming the bad guy?
I guess he wants to give, at least again, my interpretation, he always seemed like, I'm giving you a week. It's almost like I'm giving you time to see things my way.
And that's why it doesn't make sense to me. If he is willing to give a week, that means he's willing to negotiate. That means he's willing to see other sides of the thing.
I don't know that he's willing to see other sides of the thing. In his mind...
Then why is he giving them a week? Why didn't he just...
Because he wants them... He wants them to come to him, his way. Because even on the beach, he's like, either you do what I tell you or I destroy you and all your people. It was never about like... I don't think that it was ever about anything other than that. His reason for being is to protect his people, to make sure that they continue and that they are safe, right? So however that needs to happen, whether I need to form an alliance with these other people or if they're going to get in my way, then I need to take them down. And he's pretty confident in his and his people's abilities to fight, because up until now, they've been untouched, much like Wakanda, right? I'm sure the horror sequence in the beginning isn't the only time that they've appeared in the course of the last 600 years. It's just that nobody knows about it because they've made sure to leave no witnesses, right? That's because at some point somebody would have been like, yeah, I saw these blue guys in the water, right? That's never been a thing, to the point where even the U.S. government, they didn't even know about the Talakans. They immediately just assumed that all this shenanigans were directly tied to the Wakandans, right? So he's done a good job of making sure that his people have passed under the radar. But now, because of the world's fascination and obsession with getting their hands on vibranium, to the point where they're like, we're just going to find it and mine it ourselves, right? Because that's what happened on that rig. They found an area. So I think that in his mind, right, in Namor's mind, my end goal is to make sure to keep my people safe. I mean, there's that great flashback of him, of his kind of backstory. And when he sees the atrocities of man on the surface, what does he do? He burns it down. That wasn't his fight. He had no skin in that game, other than this is where my mother came from, and she asked me to be buried. She asked me to have her buried on the surface where she came from. So when he sees what's in front of him, he's like, WTH.
No.
You don't think that? He's what the hell?
They attacked because they were attacked. They were like, demons or whatever, and those crazy people started shooting at them. Him and his crew just walked out of the cornfield.
Yeah.
And they saw what was going on. They weren't rushing in to help those innocent people.
Right.
Did they even help them, or did they kill everybody?
I think they killed everybody.
I think they killed everybody.
Yeah,
and the reason why, and they basically were just like, the crazy people that were doing it just pulled out guns and started shooting at them because they saw a bunch of blue freaking people coming out of the cornfield.
Right.
And one of them had little wings on his feet and pointy ears, and the guy was like, it's Satan!
Yeah.
It wasn't a rescue mission. He wasn't like a righteous defender of the innocent. They killed everybody.
That's true, actually. I think he did kill everybody.
And that would have made sense. That little kid would have killed that person, not kept her around while he took Shuri on a tour of the city.
Well, this is why I thought they were going to hook up, because he was like giving her time to because remember he says that I want to show you why this is important to me.
Yeah.
I want you to understand where I'm coming from. I think eventually the other person would have met their demise.
But here's the thing. He could have shown her that, and he could have explained why it's so important. And then when she was brought back, she would have been like, okay, where's the other person?
Yeah.
And he could be like, oh, well, I told you, she's dead now. And Shuri would have been upset. But let's be honest, it's not like as though Shuri really knew who this person was. It's not like as though that person was a Wakandan.
Yeah.
This person was a total stranger who, for some reason, Namor saw as a threat, which, I mean, that's a whole other avenue that's just dumb.
I don't know.
If somebody could build something, somebody else could build it too.
That's true. But she burned her plans.
She burned her plans for her suit of armor.
Oh, okay.
She didn't burn her plans for the other thing. In fact,
the other thing was in the laptop, which she took with her.
The government had the thing. You don't think the government looked and saw what it was made out of? They could have built it again. Trust me.
Did they? Or did Namor leave it for the queen and the princess on the beach there?
That original one, yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is, like I said, that's another thing that's just weak. It's like, oh, she's the only one who could build it. Bullshit. Anybody could have built this thing. If it wasn't her, then, oh, look, we got to introduce Reed Richards at some point. Oh, he could have built it. Mm-hmm. Oh, it could have been one of the psychos who worked for Iron Man. Mm-hmm. It could have been anybody. This is the Marvel universe. There are killer robots and geniuses and just all manner of craziness going on. Mm-hmm. You don't think somebody could build a vibranium detector?
I don't know.
And that's just dumb. That's just That's the thing that like I said, it's the only problem I have with the film is that so much care is taken throughout so much of the movie, and then you just have this such a weak plot point. It's like the weak little chain, the weak little link in the chain that just crumbles at the slightest touch because it just doesn't work. The very fact that she's the only one who could do it. No. She's the only one who did it first. If Namor was smart, which he should be, considering his age and I built a freaking sun under the ocean. If he was smart, he would understand wasting this person, killing this person is not going to solve my problem. It's just going to happen maybe a couple of months down the line. Maybe he's out. He doesn't know how technology works. Generally, when somebody builds something, somebody else has been building it too. There's like 5 variations on anything that comes out. When Beta came out, somebody was making VHS. That's just how the world works. And to have this really just simple worldview when it comes to that, it's weak. Second, if he did, which he did, have this simple worldview, there was no reason to keep her alive. Zero. She shouldn't have even been brought. She should have been killed on the bridge. I mean, they didn't have to kill Shuri.
I don't think his intention was ever to. I think he really wanted to cultivate that alliance.
You could see that would make sense. If he really wanted to cultivate the alliance, keep Shuri alive. The girl has no connection to Shuri, really. No connection to Wakanda.
But I think Shuri felt responsible for her and also saw so much of herself in the girl being
great. And you know what? She'd be upset for a little bit and then she'd move on.
Possibly.
Namor would have been happy. There would have been zero conflict until, obviously, 15 other vibranium detectors are found and made.
Possibly. But again, remember, she is of the bloodline of this family. And even though she possesses her own strengths and fire, she also has that nobility. She also has that compassion and that empathy. And I think that if Namor had done what he had proposed to do, I think Shuri would have taken on this fight. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe. I don't know if the mom would have.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
She does something for this person.
She does, but that's happening during something else.
Yes, but she does something
she
major.
Does, but that's just because that's who she is in that moment while that event is occurring. Otherwise, it would have been like, why do I need to care about an American?
Possibly, but I think that in that moment, she's not looking at it as a Wakandan and an American. She's looking at it.
No, in that moment. I
am a mother.
In that moment. I'm talking about every other moment when she's not even there. She doesn't even know who the hell this person is. Mm.
I mean, she knew.
And in fact, she probably cares about her even less because her daughter got kidnapped finding this person. And she was super pissed about that.
Yeah, she was unforgiving.
Unforgiving. Honestly, that aspect of the story is where I find weakness. And especially with the way Namor is portrayed.
All right, fair enough. That's your opinion and your interpretation. I don't necessarily agree. I think a lot of the story flowed well. I think it is an absolute feast for the eyes. I think that if you want to venture into the movie theaters, you will not be disappointed. I agree with you. I think the first one is a little bit stronger as far as story and development and stuff like that. But I think that this one does not lack. I think from where it starts to where it ends, it's an amazing journey. I am completely enamored of how Ryan Coogler just wove this amazing storytelling experience from the start to the end, incorporating so much and just using everything, whether it was the actors, whether it was the set pieces, the costuming, which is just brilliant. Mm-hmm. The different genres sort of blended together. I just top to bottom, top-notch work. Ryan Coogler deserves all the awards right now, and as does the rest of the company, in particular Leticia Wright, who does a really amazing thing. I mean, she had big shoes to fill, and she did a spectacular job doing that. Kudos to all the other characters, Winston Duke, Lupita Nyong'o, the always always amazing Angela Bassett, who was absolutely robbed of a Best Actress for What's Love Got to Do with It. Even people that aren't on the screen for very long, like Martin Freeman and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I mean, just really top to bottom. I can't say enough good stuff about this movie. I mean, perfect? No. But still such a worthy follow-up to the first one, which was so fantastic. I think, like you mentioned, to have to kind of deal with the loss of the main character, not only as the main character, but also as a human being, as an actor, as a coworker, as a friend to a lot of these people. I think what this cast and crew have done is just sublime. 1 to 10, I'm going to give this an 8.5.
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
7.5, 7.5, 8.5.
I'm not saying
worthy of going to the theater.
I think it's good. I think it's a fun ride. I just think the first one was better. Everybody's motivations were way more defined and made more sense. Overall, as far as like Namor's look and power, and I guess his overall motive made sense. I just thought the character, I don't know, it didn't work well with the whole motivation or the catalyst for the conflict. Talokan and Wakanda. It was a bit too one-dimensional for me. That was the week. But if you could overlook that, yeah, it's an exciting movie. It's fun. One other little gripe. Well, actually, I don't want to. You know what? No, I'm not even going to say it because that's a spoiler.
I was going to say
how about this?
No. The only thing I would nitpick, which is something I told you, is how do people that are in the water come out looking dry?
Oh yeah, there's that.
I was like, what is the science behind this?
He comes out initially looking wet, but he
really.
He dries off a bit too fast.
Are you kidding? There was a shot of him coming out of the water, and his back is dry. His little loincloth is dry. I'm like, that's fabric. That should be wet.
Non-spoilerish gripe.
Oh, gosh. Here we go.
Somebody is able to do stuff that they shouldn't have been able to do. I mean, granted, something happens to them, but they shouldn't have been able to do what they were able to do.
All right.
But they did it. I'll suspend my disbelief for it, but they should have been able to do what they were doing, especially if they're fitting with the way their character was prior to what happened to them.
Okay.
I know what it's like to be.
Saying, but
I know what it's like to be the guy in the chair. Okay. The guy in the chair ain't doing flips.
All right. The other thing I want to highlight in this film was the soundtrack. The soundtrack for this thing is amazing. There's a lot of really great music in this. I'm going to absolutely buy the soundtrack at some point this week. And it just, again, so many elements in this film. A lot. 2 hours and 41 minutes is a long time to sit for a movie, but I was thoroughly entertained. I did not look at my watch. I did not blink. I had such a fun experience. Thank you, Marvel. Thank you again, Kevin Feige, for opening up the purse strings. Thank you, Ryan Coogler, for such a wonderful story experience. Cast and crew, shout out to everyone involved in this film. And Chadwick Boseman, wherever you are, you're loved and missed. Wakanda Forever, playing right now in theaters, 2 hours, 41 minutes, rated PG-13. Nothing objectionable. Absolutely take your 10 and up, maybe?
Yeah.
There are scenes of peril, as IMDb will tell you, but fighting. It's nothing.
Some people are getting stabbed with spears, but it's not gratuitous or bloody.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
I think you may see some blood on some cuts.
Yeah,
but nobody's getting
just
explosions.
Really,
There's explosions.
Really good storytelling. Really, really good storytelling. Densely packed. There is a lot going on. And unlike Bullet Train, the flashbacks and the build-up here well placed and well done.
Serve an actual purpose.
Yes, and it wasn't like a spear was given a backstory. A fucking bottle of water. Jesus. All right, that's it from us, and we will come back with another review soon. Good night.
Good night.